Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. Mind your business. Only on Money FM 89.3.
Money FM 89.3, Audrey, Siek, and Emaad, Akhtar with you on Mind Your Business. In the spotlight today, a media student turned cricket player to leading Google's Asia Pacific initiatives. We're talking about the managing director of Google Singapore and the APAC Agency at Google, Ben King. Now, his journey has been nothing short of surprising.
Indeed. What has the past decade looked like for Ben as a leader in tech and in the ever-evolving age of AI? How is Google navigating the next phase of its growth? For more insights, we're joined by Ben himself. He's here. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning to you. Thanks for having me. I feel a little bit embarrassed that you've called me a cricket player, but outside of that, I think everything was relatively accurate.
Fair enough. Thanks for fact-checking. Now, we've done our own bit of fact-checking on you, Ben. We've done our due diligence, conducted some background research, but you'd be pleased as punch to know that we used Google to do so.
Very good.
And in doing so, we found out that your career path is anything but traditional. So tell us about that personal journey from a media student to a non-professional cricket player and then to the helm of Google Singapore. How did all of that play out?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, the cricket side of things has been a big part of my life. It wasn't a profession for me. I have many professional cricket playing friends and, I was never there, right? But the reality was it was a huge driver of sort of life and corporate lessons and a big part, as I say, of my life. But my career really did start after university. I was a media student, as you say.
Yeah.
But media is quite broad. So, when I came back from the time playing cricket in England, after university with my then girlfriend, now wife, I rang up a friend of mine and said, look, I've just done this media degree. What do you think I should do? And he said, you should do new media, which is what they were calling digital media back then. So I went on to a website. I searched for a job. I ended up in ad sales. So if I think about my journey towards tech, it was somewhat accidental and quite lucky and fortuitous in hindsight. Then I think after sort of 5 or 6 years in Australia, my wife and I, Yvette, we wanted to see the rest of the world. We wanted to explore a little bit outside of the Australian borders, and Singapore was always on our list. In fact, as we went to England, we transited through Singapore before, all of the MBS and that sort of thing was up. I sat on the Padang and thought, I'd like to play cricket here one day. But, after 2 years sitting in Singapore, actually the head of Southeast Asia came to me and said, what would you like to do? And I think probably the answer that I gave somewhat unknowingly sort of set my career on an interesting path. I said, look, why don't you just give us the hardest problem you've got? Not knowing whether I'd be successful, very understanding I might fail. That was quite risky at the time, but if I reflect on it, it did set me on this course of risk-taking, maybe doing things that other people weren't necessarily willing to try.
Yeah.
Traveling around the region, these sorts of things. And that sort of led to, Thailand, Pakistan, Indonesia, Philippines, and sort of shorter-term assignments, which led into the full-time Singapore and Thailand roles that I had.
Yeah, I really want to dive into that. You were sent across, Thailand, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan in your 30s for short so-called apprenticeships, right? So that must have been an incredible experience. How do you adapt to all of these different cultures and working styles while tackling challenges in these diverse markets for you guys at Google?
Well, yeah, that was certainly a whirlwind. Incredibly exciting time, but not entirely easy. I think, it was sort of characterised by a lot of mistakes, a lot of failure, certainly in the initial years. I think the first time I went to Thailand, it was sort of this clashing of quite a brash or blunt, Australian demeanour with, a beautifully polite Thai culture. And look, it was on me to change. I was a visitor in their country, and it wasn't entirely easy. If I think back, though, I think you develop a bit of a toolkit on how to learn, how to seek feedback. I think, first of all, developing a small trusted group of truth tellers, people who can really help you understand where you're going wrong and be able to share that feedback with you comfortably. I think that was something that worked really well. But then also being able to develop an ability to self-diagnose and figure out yourself where you could have gone better, and then having a commitment to learning and being quite humble about that. I think that was absolutely critical because there were a lot of mistakes. You don't know what you don't know, and you're walking into different business and cultural contexts that are very new to you. So I think that sort of process really helped me deal with the difficulties and get better as a result of it. I think the second thing would just be being able to elevate out and understanding that the good and the bad, they kind of live together. You know, you can experience the good in a much better way if you understand what bad looks like and feels like. Bad can, help you learn in a much more accelerated fashion, and just taking a more level approach, not getting too up, not getting too down. I think they were quite important assets throughout those initial years.
Yeah, taking the middle way or the middle approach, I suppose. Looking back, Ben, could you identify for us any key experiences or watershed moments that shaped your leadership style, and then maybe get into what your leadership style actually entails?
Sure. Look, I think the reality is that you develop your principles of leadership over, a range of different experiences. For me, it's sort of threefold. I think actually non-work is where I started to dive into, what leadership looked like. And actually cricket was important for me in that respect. And I know you were a cricketer as well.
Non-professional one.
Likewise.
Let's fact check.
Likewise. But then also sort of observation and reflection, those experiences you have early in your career where you observe different leaders, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, as a subordinate, and then finally sort of putting those experiences into action, and that leads into your principles. For me, with cricket, it sort of helped me learn how to fail, actually. You fail a lot in that game, but you need to learn how to fail well, right? So you fail as a batsman, then you need to be helpful to the rest of the team for maybe many days to help the team do well. You need to, if you're a captain, figure out how to bring different egos together towards collective outcomes. And I was captain in cricket teams quite early in my career, so that was really important for me. I think then, observationally, when you start to move into your corporate career, you get a sense as to what works, what doesn't. I worked under a manager who sort of led by fear. That didn't work. That wasn't durable. It didn't, build a really strong, sustainable business. I didn't like it. So you learn from what you don't like, but you also learn from what you do. Really big thinkers or people that are very people oriented, and then you apply those, and you fail and you succeed. I think fail is good. You learn a lot from it, but also success is important too, because then you can reflect on the things you can amplify. Can also build into your confidence levels and that sort of thing. So, yeah, you develop a toolkit and your principles, and, we can certainly talk about principles if you like. But, yeah, for me, to go into the way I think about it, it's, a combination of really high aspirational thinking and teams that really want to, bend the bar and think very big about the problems that they're trying to overcome or the opportunities they're trying to plug into. I think incremental thinking is a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think marrying that with, very sort of granular plans, but then a very strong focus on, sort of first-class execution. If you do these three things, then you've got no issues with me whatsoever. If you can bring that together and, you can codify that for your team, it can create psychological safety because they know exactly what to expect. And then undercutting this all is, the most important thing is people, right? So investing really, really heavily in people. That's probably the simplest way I could describe principles of leadership for me.
All right. Well, as the saying goes, nothing succeeds like success, but failure is obviously a necessary part of that, as you've realized, and
Indeed.
as a lot of leaders do. So things move really quickly in the tech industry. Case in point, Google's just announced the launch of Gemini 2.0. So tech employees often have to possess the agility to innovate.
Yep.
How do you create an environment where diverse ideas can thrive, and how challenging is it to navigate a sea of ideas to pick out what's going to work and what might not?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, the reality is we could do 1,000 things. There's just so much going on at the moment. But, you do 1,000 things, and it's death by 1,000 cuts. So, we want people to think very big. We want people to think about problems in a much more exponential rather than incremental way. And so that what you really need to do there is build a culture where experimentation is okay. Big thinking is really welcomed. But I think you need to, sort of build that within certain guardrails. Right, so within the business construct, so it's just not entirely blue sky and, go out and do whatever you want. That might seem, obvious. There is a place for it, by the way, when we have our sort of moonshot and our, sort of more extraneous bet type scenarios, but that sort of sits in the broader alphabet parent. But within Google, just, making sure you're blending that big idea experimentation with then guardrails for thinking. But I think there's some really important enablers that sit within that, and some are really well known. Psychological safety, I think, is an incredibly important tenet of our culture. And what that means is people feel safe to take risks, but then also fail. They feel safe to bring their full self to work, to bring their full personality, to bring their ideas without, fear of not being included and things like that. So psych safety is something we think very carefully about. It's easier said than to create. It can easily be broken, of course. So we need to very carefully cultivate that. The second thing is just making sure everyone has a voice. I don't I don't think always the best ideas come from the senior-most person. In fact, it's very not often the case. So, how do you make sure everybody can bring their ideas to the table? I think that's something we care very deeply about. And then finally, putting some programs around this, things like 20% projects where people can dive into work outside of their core role and explore different things. But as I said before, within the constructs of the business.
Yeah.
So we think about it, in multiple different ways, but it's a wonderful question, and, it's hard to get right.
Yeah. So being able to adapt to the times, being able to think big and to innovate must be key qualities that Google looks for in their employees. And globally, Google is one of the most sought after companies to work for. We have seen this trend of top companies like Amazon, JP Morgan kind of cracking down on remote work. So what's Google's stance on flexible work arrangements? And are you guys open to the hybrid work arrangement?
Oh, we 100% apply the hybrid working arrangement. So we have a 3-2 model, 3 days in the office, 2 days work from anywhere, and that's been the case since the back end of COVID, and it remains the case today. We also do a few other things, like work from anywhere weeks. People can work from anywhere in the world for 4 weeks a year, and that still applies. And, I take advantage of that from time to time. I'm Australian. I have family in Australia. I can go back and work out of the Australian office, usually during the school holidays week, take my kids back. So these sorts of things are available to the workforce, and we see what happens around the industry, but we manage our company on our own terms, and this works for us.
Yeah. Have you found that people actually really enjoy going into the Google office?
Well, I can't talk for every office around the world, but I can talk for Singapore, and I would say yes, 100%. And we were just talking before the interview, but I think it's a bit of a different scenario in places where there's really long commutes and these sorts of things. I can completely have compassion for the fact that, working from home might be, really look forward to on a couple of those days. In Singapore, it's not so much the case. I think, it's obviously a much smaller island, and, people can quite accessibly get to the office, and we find our tendency to be very, very high. I think people like the free food too.
Oh, yes, I'm sure.
Some
That's
folks
a big
like
draw.
getting away from their kids at different times. So, it's pretty well tenanted in Singapore, and they enjoy coming in.
Okay, so Ben, with technology evolving so rapidly, we've seen so many changes over the years. How do you strike a balance between, driving innovation and managing risks as well, and the challenges that come with all of that?
Yeah, you could take that question, many different ways. I think maybe if you sort of pull it back to AI, it's probably a good example of how we think about it. It's very topical at the moment, in the public discourse and the corporate discourse, all the rest of it. But artificial intelligence, the way that we think about it is that you need to be, well, first of all, it's an incredibly exciting time. It's probably, in my career, this is the fastest I've seen things move. It's incredibly exciting what the various different use cases look like in terms of unlock and that sort of thing. And we need to move very quickly as a result of that, and we need to be quite bold in the way that we move. But then we need to balance that with responsibility. To me, this is not a race to first. In fact, if you think back to many different examples across the tech industry's life cycle, first is not always one. If I think about our own products, things like Chrome and Search and Gmail, they weren't first to market. They were just, really, really good products that users really loved. Facebook wasn't the first social media platform, so on and so forth. So, it's not a race to first, and it's important to remember that. And it's especially important to remember that with technology like AI, where there are inherent risks. So that's where we try to meld that approach of bold and responsible. And if I could give an example around search, we've launched Search AI Overviews, which is effectively conversational summaries based on queries within the search results experience for users. So we're sort of evolving and innovating in the way that people are experiencing information. We have image to search as well. But then on the other side of it, we're also rolling out, better controls, things like Synth ID, which really label, whether an image is artificial intelligence generated or not, or about this image, which helps people understand the origins of an image. So we're trying to do things in such a way that we're evolving and innovating, that we're improving the experience based on this incredible technology, but also doing it in a way that provides better controls and better safety for users. And that will permeate across many different products. I've just given one example in Search.
Yeah, you've talked about AI, and we're in the prime of the AI era. To paraphrase a family friend, it's 9 p.m. and the AI party is just beginning, and it's going to go all
Certainly
night long.
is just beginning,
You've talked about some of those innovations. Can we talk a little bit more about the guardrails and the safety and some of the challenges that you would want to navigate when you're expanding on the AI front?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the reality is that Gen AI is in very, very early stages. Predictive AI is not. Predictive AI has been around for a very long time, and that's been sort of rolling through our various different products for near on a decade. Gen AI, relatively new, and the capabilities that come off the back of that, they're evolving very quickly. So, as I said before, we need to balance one. What are these various different use cases that can really evolve various different areas of the industry, how people consume information or how they access information, how they think about content creation, with also providing, as I say before, the various different controls as a first line of defense on our side. But then it's not just about us. I sort of explained how we think about it as a company. It's also about how, this area is regulated, and we want to be part of that dialogue. And that's very important. I think it's too important not to be regulated. In fact, our CEO, Sundar Pichai, has talked about that very fact. So we want to engage with not only governments, but we want to engage with community groups and various different partners to try and get this right as well. So it's not just about what we're doing internally, it's also how we're engaging with the ecosystem as well.
Fair enough. I can't help but notice, I've been staring at it the whole morning. Is that the Google Pixel Fold?
It isn't actually.
Oh, it isn't? Okay. My bad.
Awkward.
It's Android. It's Android. It's a Samsung. It's a Samsung. It's Android.
Fair enough.
It's a flip.
All right. Well, from adapting across cultures to leading in AI, it's clear that staying agile and fostering innovation will be key to shaping the future of technology. Ben, thank you so much for coming into our studio and sharing all of your insights today. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I guess the final frontier will be joining the Australian cricket team on a full-time basis.
I'll watch them play Sri Lanka today.
All right. Sounds good. That was Ben King, Managing Director, Google Singapore and the APAC Agency at Google. Stay with Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.